We've got the Ram 1500 here. This is a Gen 5. This particular model is the 2025. Quick thing to note there is, in order for our micros, mud flaps, and our fender liner or fender flare to work here, you got to make sure that you have these OEM fenders on your vehicle. We are going to mock up a set of TriXPoly micros, mud flaps, all that good stuff here for the 1500s without the OEM fenders, but we're trying to get that vehicle in. But at this point, you got to have the OEM fenders. So what we're going to start out with here today is we're going to start with the micros. So a quick way to identify the front and the rear is the rear has 4 holes here, the front has 3. On all the products here that we're going to be talking about, the ARC logo faces towards the rear of the vehicle, so these things just bolt into OEM locations and you're good to go. So this thing's going to be about as easy as it gets. And we're going to switch over to these Ray-Ban POV glasses here in a second. See how they go. Give it a shot. So here we are. Okay, so we're on the 1500 Ram here. This is the 2025, as I mentioned before. We've got the front micro, so we've got these 3 holes. Quick way to identify the where they go and the position of the micro itself. And then what we're going to do is identify the logo. Always faces towards the rear of the vehicle. You're going to want to make sure these 3 bolts here are removed from the truck. You're going to want to keep those 3 bolts handy. We're going to be reusing them. It's great hardware, so keep it going. So you take your 8mm socket. You're going to start at the top. I'm going to make sure that gets in there. All right, so we have some adjustability here with these micros, so we don't want to necessarily tighten them too far quite yet. I'm going to grab the second bolt. Okay, one more. All right, so let's loosen that up a little bit. Okay, these are in. So what you can do here is you can see that these things will adjust out probably about a good inch. That's all the way out there. And if you push it all the way in, depending on your offset, you got just this little nice micro flare there. But if you've got a lift, larger tires, bigger flare that you want to have on the micro itself, you just pull that thing out, tighten it down, you're good to go. We're going to find a nice little sweet spot here right in the middle. We're going to go ahead and tighten these things down. All right, that's about as easy as it gets right there. And that is the front micro on the Ram 1500. All right, so now we're on the rear of the Ram 1500 here. Quick way to identify the rear micro is it's got 4 groove marks in it, 4 holes for the 4 bolts that are here on the rear fender. Logo's always going to be facing towards the rear, so what we're going to want to do is just remove the OEM hardware. Okay, so you're going to want to hold on to that hardware because we're going to reuse it. And then we're going to go and reinstall this, or I should say install the micro. So we're going to start at the top, grab a 8mm socket. We're going to just put it right back into that OEM mounting location. And just like the front, you're going to have some adjustability in here. So don't tighten them down too far quite yet. Let's figure out the right position here and we'll go ahead and tighten them up. Okay, 2 more. All right. All right, so now that we got those bolts somewhat installed there, again, very similar to the front, you've got about an inch here of adjustability. So you just want something little, you can push it all the way in. You want something a little bit bigger to really protect the side of the vehicle here, you can have it all the way out. We'll find some middle ground here with this micro. It looks good, matches the front. And then we're gonna go through here and just tighten up the bolts. All right, and that is the installed rear micro on the Ram 1500. Just a side note here, the installation process on the driver side is the same exact sequence on the passenger side for both the front and the rear. So again, same sequence, you got 4 bolts here on the driver side, you got 4 bolts on the passenger side, 3 on the front driver, 3 on the front passenger. We're going to move on to the mids and the full-size mud flaps and the fender liner here, or I should say the fender flare, here in a minute. So we'll be back in a minute. We're back on the Gen 5 1500 Ram here. We're going to be installing the mid mud flaps. The installation sequence for the mid mud flaps and the full-size mud flaps is exactly the same. So we're just going to do an installation on the mid mud flaps. Quick way to identify the front versus the rear. So the front is, again, it's only got the 3 over here on this side, and then it's got this 1 on the internal. On the rear, you've got 4. Again, logo always faces towards the rear. We're gonna start on the front and we're gonna transition over to the Ray-Bans for the POV. So more to come here in a minute. Okay, so now we're in the POV here and we're gonna go and start installing the mid mud flap here on the Ram 1500. So we've already got the OEM bolts removed here. You're gonna wanna hold on to those bolts. You're gonna reuse those bolts to install the mid mud flap. The only thing that's different here with regard to the front is you've got this large rivet here, which you can pop out with just either a screwdriver or a rivet puller. We'll supply you guys with an extra 7mm rivet to throw in there when we do the installation. So we're gonna start with logo facing out towards the rear of the vehicle, and then we're gonna go and start at the top here with the OEM hardware. So let me get here real quick. All right, so you're not going to want to tighten that all the way down because very similarly to the micros, you've got a good amount of adjustability depending on the offset of your tires. So you can go all the way in, have a nice little flare like that, nothing too dramatic, or you can go all the way out and really have some coverage there. So for the sakes of this video, we're going to go ahead and just make this thing kind of right in the middle. And then the last thing that you want to do once you've got the thing lined up in its appropriate position is you want to tighten these bolts down. Really cinch it up, because if you go and put this rivet in after the fact or too early, what's going to end up happening here is that rivet's not going to allow it to move too freely. So you're going to want to make sure that you tighten that up first and then install the rivet. So once you've got it locked in, we're going to go ahead and install that 7mm rivet in there, and that's it. That is the installed version or the install of the front mid mud flap on the Ram 1500 Gen 5. Side note, the installation process on the driver's side is the same as the passenger side, and we'll get to the rear installation here in a second. All right, so now we're on the rear of the Ram 1500 Gen 5, and we're going to be installing the rear mids, the rear mid mud flap, and the sequence here on the rear is the same on both the driver and the passenger side. It's also the same for the mid mud flap and the full-size mud flap. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is remove the OEM hardware. You got those 4 bolts there. Those are bolts that you're going to be reusing here. So what we're going to do is start with logo facing towards the rear of the vehicle, like so. And we're going to start at the top. Now keep in mind these things are adjustable back here, so we're going to want to make sure that we don't tighten them down all the way, because we do have one hole that we need to drill into this cheap little fender liner that they got here, which I'll get to here in a second. So we're just going to keep going down the line here as it relates to getting these things installed. Again, it's not too tight. We got to move the flap around, make sure that it's where we want it to be. Too tight, one more to go. All right, so like I mentioned before, we've got some adjustability here, and we're going to want to make sure that we kind of line this thing up. You don't want to like crook it or anything like that, so you can line it up so that it has, you know, it's vertical with the tire and the body of the vehicle. So for this one, we're going to want to have this thing just about like that, not too far out, because all the way out, and then you've got all the way in. So we want that thing to be kicking out a little bit, give you enough side protection there to protect the paint. Now let's go ahead and tighten this thing up. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last stage here of drilling through this little plastic fender liner here, and there's nothing behind here, and I'll walk you through how to go about handling this here in a second. If you wanted to take your tire off, it's super easy to go and just drill through this plastic with a 5/16 inch drill bit. What I'm going to show you today is a little trick. So you just take a little screwdriver or a little Phillips head screwdriver that you have and just kind of poke through it. Like I said, this stuff is relatively easy to just get through, and what that's going to do is give you a little drill through area on the back side there. And what you can do is you can come through here, and let me show you. Once you see that hole that you just punched through, you can go ahead from the back side with plenty of room and drill through it. Super simple. There you go. Clean that up a little bit so you can get the rivet out. Okay, done deal. And then you take an 8.5 supplied rivet. Might need to put your hand back there to get it through there. Tighten it up, push it through. Done. All right, now that's fully installed. So again, the sequence of events here for the rear, mid, and rear full-size mud flap is exactly the same. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 OEM bolts going back into position. You got one hole that you need to drill. Showed you guys a little trick there on how to do that. 8.5 rivet going in through the hole you just drilled, and you've got a fully installed mud flap on your 2025. This is a 2025 on your Gen 5 Dodge Ram 1500.